Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel and to a new episode of Shouting into the Void with myself, Connor, and Liam. He's on one of these sides. I never know because sometimes they flip it.
Nice.
But yes, this is the weekly show where we re-watch episodes of Doctor Who, specifically from 2005 onwards. We are now in 2010, 12 years
my
ago.
God. Still the previous decade, but what can you do?
Oh God! Oh, time is fleeting. We are at series 5, and this is episode. Oh, I've written it down. Episode 4 of series 5. The first of a two-parter. It's The Time of Angels, which I always want to call Time of the Angels because that feels like that's what it should be. But okay, they say the episode title in the episode, so it's
That's
fine.
not what he says in the book. It's not what the episode title is.
No. So yes, this is the first in the Weeping Angel two-parter of series 5. Their first appearance since Moffat introduced them in series 3 in Blink, the infamous spooky episode that doesn't feature the Doctor as much. This one, he's everywhere. He is in almost every scene.
Matt Smith coming out the wazoo.
Oh God, there's just so much. Basically, River Song contacts, gets in touch with the Doctor in a unique way to follow this crash or this spaceship which crashes into a temple because the Weeping Angel inside this ship, which I think is basically like being treated as an antique, and they don't realize it's an actual alien, I think is why it's being transported, crashes this ship into this temple place where there are some other statues there which I'm sure won't be evil. Psych, no. They're all Weeping Angels now.
Wait, what?
So the Doctor basically has to go and stop this. Well, I guess it's stop the spaceship exploding and stop the Weeping Angel, I think, in the two basic strands. And this first part is basically just set in the catacomb section of the mission, where it's quite spooky and dark and people die. What did you think of the episode?
Oh, it's good. I very much loved it. Is it better than 11th Hour? Do I prefer it to that? I don't know. I'd have to weigh that up and maybe come to a decision at the end. But it's definitely, a really, really strong episode. Great return to form for the Weeping Angels as well. A cool return story for them. At least thus far. We'll see if Flesh and Stone holds up as well. But this one certainly did. And yeah, obviously we get the return of them and River Song. So there's a lot to kind of juggle with those big two returning things in the previous era. But I like how they're kind of handled, as well as giving the Doctor and Amy still plenty to do each. But yeah, this is just my jam. This is the kind of Doctor Who that I think just is really for me. This is what I think of when I think of Doctor Who, like this kind of whole deal and like how it's written and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Hopefully part 2 also kind of at least does as well, or at least is still like a solid conclusion to the story, because I can't really remember a lot of Flesh and Stone. But yeah, this one was great. I loved seeing everyone return in their various different ways. I think it was very scary. Some great kind of character beats in there as well. I think it's really rewarding actually watching this episode, knowing where everything goes later on down the line. It seems like, Headless Monks, he mentions it this early, and it's that church from later on. Oh my goodness. And it's the Byzantium that gets mentioned in Science in the Library and everything. So I like seeing all those pieces kind of having put the puzzle together. You can now kind of actually see Moffat build the puzzle, which you probably couldn't before because, wibbly wobbly writing and stuff. So I like how it's rewarding on rewatches to kind of pick apart everything. And, we outright know River Song's his wife years before they actually reveal that's the case. Spoilers. So I like that they kind of just go for that. And it is a very rewarding watch, and just at a base level, also a very good episode.
Yeah, I think this was one that I hadn't rewatched in a while, mainly because when it comes to a two-parter, it's, I always feel like I have to watch them both. So I never sit down and want to watch an hour and a half of 2 episodes. But yeah, it was very good. I sort of, as I said to you before, I've struggled for negatives this week because I quite enjoyed almost all of it. I thought everyone was great in it. The story is really intriguing. I like some of the villain choices they make. yeah, as you mentioned, it's good to see sort of, I guess, the world building around the Doctor and River Song's relationship and how it all plays in, and then all little hints towards the future that you don't know are hints towards the future at this point, but with hindsight that we now have, it kind of shows that Moffat did think about most of this stuff as he was going on, at least for series 5 and 6 and half of 7. With Amy and Rory, he did have the idea of what he wanted to do, which I think really shows with this and how early some things are mentioned. Although no mention of the silence yet. Although we'll see what next week brings.
That was Prisoner Zero. He did that.
That's true. All right, no mention of cracks yet, but we'll see what next week brings.
Next week definitely has cracks. I remember that much.
Yes. But yes, as always, we go through positives and negatives of this. We do have 3 of each, or we're supposed to. I only have 2 negatives this week because I did struggle with things that were wrong. But what can you do? That's a good problem to have.
Who would have thought
if
it?
anything? I know, right?
You're not a real Doctor Who fan. You should easily come up with 3 things to hate.
I should hate the show and struggle for the positives. Yeah, I know. God, I hate myself. I'll put that in the third one. My third negative. No, not enough negatives.
My third negative. Yeah, there's not enough wrong with it. That's my negative.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll go first with my first positives, and it is the Weeping Angels. Which
same.
I thought it might be, and it's not hard to see why. For 3 things I put is first of all how brutally they kill people.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're used to them just sending them back off time and feeding off the energy, but this shows that when they're desperate, they will resort to whatever measures they can to survive, including ripping out a voice box from a soldier to use, which is horrifying when you think about it. Also, the fact that they introduced the whole anything that has the image of an angel will become an angel with the video, and I watched a video earlier that points out that maybe that's how the Doctor and Martha got because Sally gave them pictures of the angels and they broke out and got them and sent them back, and it's like a self-fulfilling paradox type thing, which I like the idea of. And the whole thing with the eyes and don't look in the eyes and it could let itself into your brain, I thought was also a very creepy and unique way to sort of pad out these villains. I think this is basically the skill set that they have moving forwards. I don't think much gets added to them after this. I think this is effectively the most well-rounded we've seen them. And naturally, they're very creepy because you still have to look at them no matter what. But now you have to be careful of pictures and you can't look at them in the eye.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying. But yeah, what did you like about them?
They're just so scary. They are like an iconic Doctor Who monster at this point, and I like that this episode kind of does continue on with that. And there are some cool additions to the whole lore behind them. I love that. I think sometimes with like the Daleks and the Cybermen, you bring them back, and writers feel the need to have to make them they're deadlier than ever for this, that, or the other. I like that they brought the Weeping Angels back, and most of them are weaker than we've ever seen them before. But that makes them super brutal, and they're just going to outright kill you. I think they probably saw like how people reacted to Blink, and like, well, at least you still get to live a full life. If they get you, you still get to live all of that. And they're like, no, we're even going to take that from you this time, because they can snap your neck if they want to, and do all this kind of really cruel, taunty shit. You think of poor Bob like shooting a statue, like, oh, it looked at me, and it probably did look at him, and then just getting gaslit, and like, oh my god, like just thinking about that, like knowing what the reveal is later on when you're watching it, like, oh my god, what are you doing, you madman? So I like everything with that, and then them speaking through Bob's voice to like make the Doctor mad at the end and all of that. I think giving statues like characterization in the way that this episode manages to do, I think is really cool. So I like how vindictive they are and how clever they're shown to be with like orchestrating this whole crash to free all the other ones and stuff. And yeah, just a few new power set additions, a few new variants of them. Obviously, they look for the most part quite different to how they did in Blink, because they're not at their purest forms and stuff. And I think they're really creepy designs, seeing kind of like how decayed and gross they all are. But yeah, they're just brutal in this one. really creepy. Even when it's just CCTV, they're scary, and I like how they use that to kind of reintroduce that mechanic of like looking away. And to someone who has no idea that that's how they work with Amy, you're like, oh, for goodness sake. So you think they couldn't make that tense anymore when we know how they work, but when you put a character in who doesn't know, and you introduce new elements to them, I think it's a great way of kind of bringing them back. And yeah, they're still kind of brutal these years on, because very recently in Flux they were still pretty brutal and scary. So I really do enjoy like what they did with them in this one. They're just great villains. I love having them around.
Yeah, I think my only criticism for the Weeping Angels is the fact that they're always listed as being like immortal and unkillable. Where I'm like, can you just ground them up? Like, they're still statues. Could you not just like chuck them off a cliff?
Yeah, it depends what their form is when they're kind of unseen, I guess.
That's true, but I guess if you're watching them fall down the cliff, they can't really move, can they?
Like that.
So,
like, that you could easily.
So and they were by a big cliff. So all I'm saying,
it's true. I am somewhat mixed on some new powers, I think, but we can get onto that because I needed to force some negatives out of myself. But I don't really have an issue with them. I think it improves them. So.
Yeah, fair enough. My sort of second positive is the dynamic between Amy, the Doctor, and River.
That's my third positive.
Hey, look at that! I think
there was me thinking that was going to be a nice, unique one for myself.
No, get wrecked.
As soon as you said dynamic, I was like, God damn it, he's got the same one.
No, I think obviously, again, with hindsight, we know that Amy is River's mum, which is a very strange thing to think when you're watching this, especially because she's like, hey, Doctor, you gonna bang her? Like, that's your daughter.
Yes,
stop it. But yeah, I like how the at least in this situation, it's very much the Doctor and River are the parents and Amy is the child. You get that a lot with when she like rescues, or she is rescued, or she rescues herself, however you want to play it, with the CCTV camera, where the Doctor's like too busy with the tech stuff and River's like, hey, you did great, great, sweetie. And yeah, I really like that dynamic. I like sort of the chit chat that Amy and River have, where they sort of just click instantly. And it is a refreshing change to have a companion be happy that there were former companions and former travelers and all that kind of stuff, rather than sort of the Martha and Rose template of, oh, I can't believe you're with other people. Obviously Donna was fine with Martha and that, but
then they
this
back.
yeah, but then there's a different dynamic, because this is very much a case of Amy and 11 are very much your Rose and 9-10 sort of archetypal man and young attractive companion, which isn't the case. No offense to Catherine Tate, but isn't the case in series 4.
Wow.
Which, well, I mean,
cancelled.
I'm not wrong. We all know I'm not wrong. But that's why it works.
Attractiveness is subjective.
Yeah, no, you know what I mean. All right, okay, young. Do you want me to bring age into this? I will.
Wow. She's coming back in 2022. How dare you?
I know. But it's not that. It is that stereotypical companion Doctor sort of dynamic, whereas it has its unique twist, which I quite like.
Yeah, it's
I
nice
that she's not angry.
Yeah, it's nice that Amy, you don't feel like she's forced into like liking River because of a blood connection, because she doesn't know about that for another season.
Yes, and even then, I don't think it really changes the dynamic too much.
No.
It still very much feels like River's more like telling them what to do rather than the other way around. It'll all get very messy in the future, but in this one, I do like sort of the back and forth that all three of them do, and the kind of piss taking they do out of all three of them as well. Like, they kind of, it's as if they've been traveling together for a long time.
Yeah,
and there are obviously reasons for that. River obviously feels comfortable because she has been traveling with them for a while. But for the fact that spreads into the Doctor and Amy, who are effectively meeting her for the first time, sort of really shows sort of the good chemistry they all have. And I think the actors just enjoyed working with each other. And obviously, with it being everyone's first episode of the series that was filmed, then I think there might be more of an emphasis to sort of get that sort of nicety, I guess, in there. Which I just, so what did you like about the three of them?
Everything you said, basically. But yeah, even like when you just pair them off as individually, like kind of give them their own stuff to do, or if you're pairing them up, or if all three of them just having a bit of banter in the TARDIS, which was a scene added at the last minute,
I do like that,
because the episode was running short, which is hilarious. But it just works right from the off, and the fact that if you're going to bring River Song back into it, you kind of, by its very nature, probably need Alex Kingston back if you're going to explore that character. So it's kind of a gamble. Like, what if she doesn't, click with Smith and go the match she did with Tennant?
I mean, when Series 6 comes around, you could argue that you could have changed the character. At this point, you don't know. Yeah,
you need to do the reveal first. But I just think it's kind of still at a risk. Like, hopefully this just works and hopes for the best. Or she will just get got by Weeping Angel in the cave and just regenerates there and then. But I think it works so well. The dynamic between all three of them is fantastic. It doesn't feel out of place, because I think the Doctor and Amy have had enough time, just the two of them in those first 3 episodes. You get a feel for them. So it's not like, they're not exploring the companion Doctor dynamic, because I think we did get enough of that. Like when the Doctor and Donna had a few episodes before they brought Martha back into it in episode 4, a 2-parter featuring a returning alien. Whoa!
No.
But I do really enjoy the 2 of them together, even more so knowing where it does all lead. Because you watch it the first time, it's kind of the mystery of River's identity and stuff, and then toying with that I think gets you quite interested in it. But now, even just hindsight, knowing where it's all going, it's like, just imagine how excited River was seeing that her mum was around when she got sucked into the TARDIS. So I think that's kind of cool, and just again, nice, rewarding, revisiting these episodes in the way that we do. I think the on-screen chemistry between all of them works so well. I did like the little chat between Amy and River as well, and the Doctor's clearly listening in, and River reads him for filth because he's got the thing upside down. I loved all that sequence, there's something about that just works. And again, it's even a risk of bringing Rory into that. Is it going to work as a 4 of them? I think ultimately does all over again. I just enjoy revisiting this, knowing where it all leads in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's all very intriguing at this point, and I think hindsight definitely adds an extra layer of enjoyment to it. Obviously, that would depend on how you feel about the whole arc in general. But if you enjoy the arc, you'll enjoy all these little hints, which is great. So my final positive, or at least my final main one, is sort of the world building and sort of setup for the future that there is that we've hinted at. So that is the military, obviously, that do eventually come back in time. There we go. I got it.
Yeah, they're in A Good Man Goes to War and Time of the Doctor.
That's it, and Time of the Doctor. And then obviously the Headless Monks as well. That's
I didn't know they got mentioned.
I had absolutely no idea. I was like, hang on a minute, wait a minute. And I sort of listened. I was like, there's so much in this that it just hints towards the future. Is she future Mrs. Doctor or whatever? Yes.
Yes.
But the way it's sort of, they even say yes in that, but obviously it's played off to the for a different thing. Yeah. And I remember thinking at the time, like, is that all? And then just letting it go. But yeah, I do like the whole world building of this. Even with it's set in the 51st century, which kind of time frames where everything else that we see River happens in. So that's obviously the space bar, and everything that happens at A Good Man Goes to War and all that kind of stuff. I just really like the sort of the idea that we get of what is going on in this universe outside of the Doctor and Amy. And I've always enjoyed that, whether that's in Russell's, whether that's in Moffat's, or whether that's in Chibnall's, although it's kind of less in Chibnall's than what it has been before. I always enjoy seeing the universe expand and getting hints at what is going on elsewhere, which I think this does really well. But yeah, what is your final main positive?
Yes, my final main positive is the big twist with the angels.
That's my additional one.
I've also included like the whole Bob reveal, and he's like, how was he speaking to them? And oh no, Bob, I'm sorry. It's just like the way the actor speaks that role. He's so good at doing that voice. I'm like, they killed me too, sir. Like, oh shit. That's just chilling how they do that. But yeah, just the reveal of like every single statue in there's a Weeping Angel. I love it. I love how they set it up by mentioning the Applins have 2 heads, and then they're like, wait,
without noticing it, and then they bring it back round.
Yeah, because even when they get it, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just there,
but they've got 1 head. What's going on?
What do you mean, sir? And I just like that, the Doctor made this big mistake not noticing this sooner, and that like, oh shit. Because normally it's like, haha, this is a secret I've kept all along. Is how we win the day. But now he's like, oh no, they've kept the secret from me. I'm a fool. I'm a failure.
I've been bamboozled. What have I done?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. I think it's such a cool idea because you just think like, oh, they're setting up scares because there's one angel amongst this sea of any. It could be any of these, but then it turns out all of them are what you need to be watching out for. And like I mentioned before, you know, the bit with Bob earlier when he was like shooting at one, he's like, oh, it looked at me, and it maybe did, which is just terrifying to think like, oh god. So yeah, all of that I really loved. Just the oh shit moment. If you didn't know it was a two-part, that's the moment where you know it's a two-part. You know, they could have easily probably just tried and captured that lone angel if that's all the story was, and then that's that. But yeah, I just like how the stakes suddenly get even higher, because we've seen like what a group of 4 and what mischief they can cause in Blink. So when there's a whole ass army of them, albeit most of them decaying and trying to gain strength again, but still, that's a lot for them to navigate. And I just love when they like look back and they've actually been following them all this time, like crawling on the floor. Oh, God, that's horrible. So yeah, just how they build up to it, how they set it up and revealed it. It's a really great moment. And then yeah, building up to the Doctor trying to take the power a bit back again at the cliffhanger. So very well done.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough, and that's why it's sort of one of my additional ones. It's just a very nice sort of, oh dear, we're in trouble now. And you know, we'll see how well it pays off next week, because I have a feeling that this many Weeping Angels don't necessarily come into play as much, and it's kind of like we've bitten off more than we can chew here, story wise and plot wise, not necessarily character wise, but we will see how that goes. It might be better if they just stuck with the one and just had it, you know, be a creepy voice angel. But
yeah, I think they escaped the majority of them with this cliffhanger. I think because some of them just aren't strong enough to follow them, and then it's like all the ones in the forest and stuff. So
yeah. And then sort of my additional positive as well, alongside the two-head twist, is the cliffhanger. I really like the speech. I really like the sort of the music swelling. I really like the lack of Graham Norton in this version.
Very much so.
And yeah, I think it's an excellent cliffhanger, especially with, you know, the Doctor using a gun, which is considerably, you know, hardly ever used, except in extreme circumstances, which this one is. And it also shows sort of the trust that all of these people have with the Doctor to just sort of get them out of this literal dead end where anything could be going wrong and they're all about to die. It just feels very tense and very much like, oh shit, okay, I need to watch the next episode because I need to know what the hell is happening, which is terrible when it's a week-to-week release in real life. But luckily for us, after this I can go and watch it because I don't have to wait a week. But yeah, I do really like the cliffhanger. I think it's probably one of the best the show's had so far. I would say, and then obviously we'll see how well it pays off.
I like they're not too in your face about it. They go, Doctor, you can't shoot that. That's our source of light. Like it's just if you haven't remembered what this is, too bad.
Yeah, and I think there was something recently that Moffat was talking about his cliffhangers, where he always wants there to be some progress in the cliffhanger. So you leave somewhere and then you come back into somewhere else. And I think this is a good example of where that happens, because you leave somewhere and you go somewhere else. But if you look at all of his cliffhangers, it is a case of something happens and then the next episode starts somewhere else. So you think of the series
Impossible
finale.
Astronaut and Day of the Moon is the same as well.
Yeah, series finale. It's like, oh no, everyone's dead, the world's gone. And then it's like, oh, here's young Amelia. What's going on here in the second episode? You know, and I really do like that idea of moving the story along in sort of real time, because he said, you know, when it has been a week, people have it in their heads that it's been a while between those two moments, so therefore you need to have something move, because people will struggle to think, oh, it's just the minute after.
I
like
know
the idea.
There'll be a lot of people who also just complain like, oh, they've solved that pretty quickly, didn't they? And sometimes I think that is warranted, but a lot of the time, like, well, of course, because there's still a whole episode needs to happen now. But I guess that's a good way of also just avoiding that. So it kind of feels like a bit more has happened, and if they like hold off on exactly revealing how they get out of their pickle.
Yeah, because if you pick up straight where you left off, it will just be the Doctor running away, as we've seen in Flux.
I forgot about that. Whoa!
Oh, which, I mean, you know, is a way out of the cliffhanger, but
it's also the same cliffhanger to the end of episode 2, basically, as well. So
yes,
that also didn't help.
Anyway,
God,
we've
shoot us
discussed
back to
Flux
it.
before.
Yeah, we have, and we'll discuss it again. God damn it.
Yes. Have you got any other positives you want to touch on?
Yeah, I agree with the cliffhanger. I also love the foreshadowing. Don't put the Doctor in the trap because it's not going well for you. That's why the Whipping Angels aren't part of the Alliance. You fools!
Yeah.
Of course, we're not going to do this Pandora plan. You fools! You didn't put him in the trap.
Yeah.
So I like that as well because if Moffat's planning the headless monks and the church and all that, I'm pretty sure he knows where Series 5 is ending up at this point. So I do very much enjoy that little bit of foreshadowing as well. But yeah, it's a really cool cliffhanger. It's one I kind of forget about when I look back at them, but it is a good one. If on paper I feel like, that seems a bit.
Yeah.
But I think in the moment with the performances and the swelling of the music, and maybe if it wasn't also the Weeping Angels who were the threat they were fighting, maybe it also wouldn't feel as mental. I suppose the idea that he's shooting the light source is the danger there with the Weeping Angels. So if it was an army of Sontarans surrounding him, he just shoots out the light and like, oh, okay, well, no, they can't see either, so it's fine. But this is kind of where the Weeping Angels thrive. So I like how it all works out. It's a really cool cliffhanger.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Unfortunately, we do have to move on to the negatives because that's always how it works. Fortunately, I only have two. So that's also that'll shave off 5 minutes of the runtime today. So my first negative, and I mean both of these center around the start of the episode, which I think is the weakest part of the episode.
I agree.
The first one is the museum.
Right.
They just put some boxes and some old props in a church. And they went, there you go.
It's a museum, folks.
I think that's the worst set design ever seen. At least have something other than just one alley of boxes, and then when they break into the thing and run back to the TARDIS wasn't there in the first shot, but it's the same thing. I just think it could have been done a lot better. I know, budget's a thing. And all that jazz, and it might be why in the finale they go and do the big CGI cliff so that they don't have to worry about doing this again, because it's effectively the same way they communicate, on an old things or whatever. But and I do like the idea of how she does communicate and how she gets his attention. It shows that she knows the Doctor and knows what he'll do and knows that he'll be there to see that at some point. Which she doesn't know which Doctor's going to see it and turn up. But she knows that one of them will, and one of them will go and help. And I like that. It's just I just wish it was a nicer set design. It does very much feel like it was afternoon on a Friday and their set fell through, so they had to take their van loaded with props and go to the nearest church.
I wouldn't be surprised because this was plagued with timing issues filming this, so maybe that's the case. I like the idea it is a church because it's the museum of the church and the headless monks. But it's just the same glass cabinet 3 times. And spacing in this place is awful. You could fit so much more in there. But,
especially when we see this.
No wonder it's empty.
And everything.
No wonder there's no one there.
Yeah. We see the headless monks. That's why they cut their head off. They didn't want to watch. That's why it's so bad. They can't see what they're doing. But especially when further down the line where we see the church and the papal mainframe and all that, and how fancy and big and all that and grandiose it is. I know it gets more budget sort of as we move towards that. But this is very much like the beta version getting ready to go to full release. I feel they're just testing the waters, and just a bit it's just a bit naff for the start of the big adventure we're in. This it is juxtaposed with the the big fancy spaceship and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's why they did it to make it.
Make them stand out.
But either way, it's not the best design.
No. So what is your first negative?
Mine, and again, I can't really hold it against Amy or the episode because I do exactly the same thing. But tell people when you're having problems. God damn it! You saw whole ass dust come out your eye. I don't more so have a problem with that because I'd be exactly the same. If I knew I was dying, I would not tell a single soul. But it's more so the CCTV scene, especially when River says
she leans out the door and
it's
says,
just those 3 seconds, and she didn't even but it's different now. Just say that. Then you'd have been fine. So it's one of those things because the set piece has to happen. People need to be aware, and Amy's not, privy to exactly what the angels are like and what they do. Maybe she's gaslighting herself into thinking maybe it's different. So fair enough and everything, but still, it's just one of those classic cliches to kind of get drama to happen. So I needed some negatives.
Yeah, I think that is a fair one. But I just I just brush it off as she doesn't know who the villains are. By all means, she could hear them, saying, oh, they're bad or whatever, but she's just had that experience with the Daleks where they were holding tea, and they were defeated pretty easily. So she might think,
Yeah.
oh, it's fine. It's that kind of complacency, which does get knocked obviously in this two-parter, especially next week, which is good. It's good that sort of it's up there, and she effectively gets knocked down a couple of pegs,
She does.
which is good. It's always good when that happens to
Yeah.
any character in the show. So
let them all suffer.
Literally. I think that's fair enough. But yeah, I'd be the same. I'm like, oh, maybe it's just me being an idiot. Maybe it always looked like that. I'd be second guessing myself all the time.
Yeah.
So I can't really complain. My second negative again is very nitpicky. River winks at the camera, and we see her wink at the camera, and then they show her wink at the camera in the screen in the TARDIS. I'm like, you don't need both of them. You don't need both of them. just have the one on the TARDIS screen and have that be the entrance. Don't show both of them and then cut to her at the door and doing the dramatic turnaround. It's like, you don't need both of those bits. Why are they there? It's the whole
episode.
no, I know. It's like it's the whole flashback thing where if they're not necessary flashbacks, don't include them.
I think it's fair.
And they're obviously padding for time with this one. It's just a bit. It's just like, but it's fine. It's fine that it's done, but it just doesn't need to be in there twice. It smacks of Rose on the midnight screen, where they're like, "Hey, we have this clip. Let's just put it there to fill some time."
Yeah, Clara in Face of Raven, when they do that shot of her like that again and again and again, when she's screaming like again and again, like, no,
yeah,
what are you doing?
But yeah, like I said, I struggle for negatives this week. But I'll talk about the first half in a minute, so I can probably stretch to a third. But what is your second negative?
My second one, I guess it's kind of mixed, and again, I'm fine with it really, but I guess it's kind of, in a way, some of the new Angel abilities, and more so I think it's just my problem because the fandom are just going to debate. So I blame the episode for starting the debate about like, why is this not a thing in Blink? That like Larry looked into their eyes and stuff, like all of that. You could just say it's a different class of Weepy Angel and different types, or they've evolved or whatever. I don't really know. But I can also understand why people may have some issues with like introducing major things about like the image of an angel only now. And like looking into the eyes and stuff when it wasn't a thing before. But it's also a natural thing to keep the angels evolving interesting. So I don't really mind it. I think the thing that most bothered me was them deadlocking the door when there's no deadlock. Like, yeah, okay, but how though? I know it's for tension, so you can't get in. But I think at times like that, like, why can't they overpower the screwdriver, or can't you just have left it in the TARDIS for some reason? Then it's just a locked door. There are some things that are just there, and I don't think you can really kind of come up with your explanation other than they just do that now, I guess. Which can sometimes be a Moffat approach to things, granted. But it's just an example of that. I'm just a bit like, oh, but how, please?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Especially when they're supposed to be, quite weak, and it's just crashed and stuff.
Yeah, that's the other thing that bothered me. Like, it's the weaker ones that were doing that as well. And,
yeah, but I mean, you could argue that they're feeding off the energy of the engine that. So therefore they're getting stronger and then reaching out with their powers or something like that.
Yeah,
but I do get what you mean.
Again, it doesn't really bother me that much because I like the powers and the additions. Maybe the deadlock excluded. It. But it's just the fandom ruining things again. I think as is often the case.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I needed negatives, so there's another one.
Yeah, fair enough. If you want, I can give you a third nitpick.
Go on then.
River Song wants a air corridor, and it appears before the TARDIS does. she should be dead, or show the TARDIS appear and then have her fly out of the window, or have it already be there and not say when it appeared, because it appears and then she flies up to it and it's like,
how does he make the air corridor and then have the TARDIS appear there?
Yeah, and that's again very nitpicky. But those three sort of production things more than anything else.
The number of people who have done reactions to this episode and they're like, how did she do that? How is she not dead? When they've completely missed the air corridor line.
Like, I have no problem with them doing the air corridor thing. We've already established that he can extend the shell when he was like letting Amy fly about in episode 2.
And so when my Brady does it as well.
Exactly. And that's perfectly fine. But it's just like the sequencing of those shots probably needed to be a bit more thought out. And like I said, all three of these negatives have been sort of production bits from the first 5 minutes. So after that, it's fairly solid, entertaining,
and the pre-title sequence is literally 5 minutes long. So
there you go then. Everything after the credits, excellent. And I do, it's good as well because just get back to the positives. But when she follow that ship, it links into the vortex thing, so it looks as if we're following them straight through rather than it being a credits, which I quite like. But yeah, just a couple of production things which are unfortunate, but they just took me out of it for a little bit, and then I was sucked right back in, so it's fine. So what is your final negative?
Again, nitpicky. I can kind of deal with it, but there's just so many. Oh, you should come and see this. You should come and see this, guys.
Right.
They do that like 3 times. I'm like, that's too many times. That's literally all I could think of.
It's the rule of 3, though. All the Mario bosses have to be defeated 3 times.
Well, but that's a boss fight that we're actively playing. Not the same scene where you know where it's going every single time. Yeah. And it's not like the third time they change it up and do something different with it to surprise you or caught you off guard. It's just exactly the same scene with the third guy, poor Bob, rest in peace, F in the chat. But it's just a lot of that.
In theory, they do something different with him. They reconstruct.
Yeah, but that's like 10 minutes after.
yeah. Fair. That's understandable. Yeah, I do get what you mean, and yeah, I mean, we could probably put it.
It's a cliche. You should probably come and see this kind of thing.
Yeah,
but to do it 3 times as well, I'm like, come on.
Yeah,
and then the episode's running short, but come on.
It's a 2-parter. You can let this one run at 40 minutes. It's fine.
I did notice the next time trailer was like really long. I was like, yeah, you definitely need to have time. Next time trailer was like 45 seconds. I was like, wow.
Oh wow, terrible. So that's it for our positives and negatives. Unless you had any other negative points.
I did not. I barely had 3. I don't really. My heart isn't even in the 3 I have, so I definitely don't have any more.
That's fair. I've got a couple of other notes that I made throughout. First of all, this is I think the first appearance of the classic bird squawk sound effect that we're about to hear in almost every other episode of this of the next 3 series.
Right.
Like as soon as I notice this sound effect, I hear it every time it's used. It's right at it's literally like the first 10-20 seconds of the episode you hear this bird squawk, and then you constantly hear it.
Oh no, you've ruined this for me, haven't you?
Sorry. So if you go back and watch it, if you don't go back and rewatch it, you won't notice it. But once you go back and rewatch it, and with the point, that's fine. Also, and this was something that I only sort of noticed this time, is when they're in the big field. Is that the hallucination of the soldier?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So I was always confused because obviously they talk about the ship having like a forest on it. So I always assumed that was the inside of the ship. But it was only when it cut. It was only when it cut to them sort of in the same formation, in the same place in the tube. I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Did we just see his hallucination? Because it never does it again in the show. We never again see the hallucinations from the lipstick ever again, which is why it just never.
Not from their point of view, no.
No, and it never clocked for me that was the case, but apparently it is, or at least it's again, like I said, I've not really watched this episode, but it just never got there. And yeah, I also really liked Matt Smith's TARDIS noise impression. I thought that was an excellent impression, very funny. Also, big shout out to Ian Glenn, Doraemon one, who is great, and I love him in this. He has some really good lines about, especially the one where it's like, oh, I'll be sure to tell their parents
that's great.
They were brave. I was like, oh Christ.
I'll be sure to tell that to their families.
Yeah. I was like, sick burn, dude. Shame you won't be able to tell them.
Like, you're not going to be able to tell them then?
No, you won't be able to tell any of them.
Yeah.
But at least 3 of them don't exist afterwards, so True. But yeah, I quite liked this whole episode. But before we give it a ranking out of 10, have you got some fun facts?
I do have some fun facts. Let's have a look at them now, children. I need to get rid of you because that's a fun fact for the next episode. Look forward to that one though. It's a good one. Okay. So we've already talked about this already, but this was the first episode of Series 5 to be shot, meaning it was the first episode in which Matt Smith and Karen Gillan played the Doctor and Amy. And they do a very good job. Ironically, Karen Gillan's character in this episode believes her hand is turning to stone. In the Fires of Pompeii, her character's face actually was turning to stone.
Oh!
How funny.
Oh,
there you go. Doctor Who Wiki working hard on that fact. This episode marks the return of River Song to the series. Alex Kingston was delighted to be invited back, having believed her appearance in Series 4 was going to be a one-off. So even she was surprised. Ooh, this is a job for life now. You wrote a book.
Yep. You're in all the Big Finish now.
You're in all of it now. How much money did she make from Doctor Who, I wonder?
Oh, God.
Probably more than a lot of the companions.
Yeah.
The Doctor ripping the strap off the ceiling of one of the small ships was originally an accident. The producers liked the idea so much they made Matt Smith do it again in all future takes. So that's just Matt Smith being a klutz when he tears the thing off. So that's funny. During its airing in some parts of England, an animated advert for the talent show Over the Rainbow began playing over the cliffhanger. This sparked complaints to the BBC, who later apologised. The advert contained an animated Graham Norton, who later joked about it on his own show, saying he finally secured a role on Doctor Who. However, his voice had already been overheard during the first episode of the revived series, so when an error in broadcasting began playing the audio of the trailer featuring Norton for another of his talent shows, Strictly Dance Fever. So he's played us twice in the UK.
Oh, Graham.
You can't keep getting away with it. This is the first episode of Series 5 to not feature the cracks in time. We did mention that. Mm-hmm. The original cut of this episode ran short because high tides at the beach meant 3 pages of script had to be cut from filming, including the scene in which Karen Gillan read to audition for Amy Pond. In its place, Moffat wrote the scene with River flying the TARDIS, which was filmed as a pickup later on in the show's production. So there you go. But it's a really good, great scene, and I'm glad that we actually got that. So screw those 3 pages. Screw Karen Gillan's audition thing. We don't need to see that.
No.
Karen Gillan was nervous about not being able to convey a genuine reaction to her hand being bitten, so Matt Smith just genuinely did it to get the good reaction out of her, which I found quite funny. Acting. I will bite your hand. Most of the Weeping Angels in this episode are women wearing masks, costumes, and paint that took 2 to 3 hours to apply. The director found them an absolute nightmare to work with because of how long it took to get them all ready, and they had to just stand around for hours on end. It must be horrendous to play a Weeping Angel like that. I would not be able to do it.
I wouldn't be able to stand that still.
No, I would simply die.
Yeah.
River falling onto the Doctor when she entered the TARDIS wasn't in the script. It was an idea that Matt Smith thought of during rehearsals, and it ended up proving very, very difficult to film. So, thanks,
you
Matt.
Fool.
I do remember a blooper in the gag reel on the box set where Alex knees him in the balls.
Oh yeah,
which is very fun.
Yeah. That's what you get.
That's what you get. In the scene where River shows everyone the CCTV of the Angel for the first time, one of the helmets from her crew suit in Science in the Library can be seen in the background. So that's a little Easter egg for all you folks.
Yay.
Yay. To create the effect of Amy rubbing her eye and thinking she was turning to stone, Karen Gillan wore an eye patch full of sand that would pour out when it was rubbed.
I feel like Karen Gillan stabbed her eye.
Karen Gillan removed her eye. Method acting at its finest.
Oh.
But it kicks some dirt in your eye. While the stunt double performed some of the wire and green screen work for River's spaceflight, Alex Kingston asked to do some of it herself. She was given permission to do so and absolutely loved filming the sequence, which is very wholesome. I would do the same. I'd push to do that. I'd love to do it. And then finally, the Maze of the Dead set was the same set used for the cigarette spaceship in the Christmas Invasion and the entrance of the pit in the Impossible Planet. Classic Quarry. Good old Quarry in Wales, I'm sure.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, you can't beat them.
I'll wait to see more of them again.
No. Oh boy. Please. Oh God. Well, excellent fun facts as always. Now we have to go into the tough task of ranking the episode. What are you giving it out of 10?
No. It's at least a 9 from me. Is it? Do I give it the extra 0.5?
What did you give 11th Hour?
That's what I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if it was 9 or 9.5.
Oh.
Do I prefer? I don't know. I'll give it a 9. I think I do prefer 11th Hour, but this was bloody good as well. I'll go for 9.
I'm also giving it a 9, which I think is the same as the 11th Hour because I think this is definitely up there with some of the best episodes. Naturally, next week might not pay it all off. Very rarely do both parts of a 2-parter receive the same score. Very rarely does the second half go higher.
If they'd have come up with 2 negatives in part 1 and it only gets a 9, then part 2 is screwed.
I know. Well, I mean, it's because no episode is perfect. If I had no negatives, then would be 10. The only episode that gets a 10 out of 10 is Night of the Doctor, and that's a 10-minute short.
Okay.
which is, you know, that's less time to do something wrong. So
exactly that.
A point for every minute. Every minute is worth a point.
It's because no one's ever paid attention to the middle 5 minutes because they're all just still in so much shock that Paul McCann's in it.
Basically,
I couldn't tell you a single thing that happens from the start and the end. That's all I remember.
Oh, what? I wasn't expecting you.
You're right. I wasn't expecting this.
But yes, we will come on. I'm sure we'll discuss that in more detail when we get to the 50th anniversary, which is, you know, coming up quick based on how
it's this era.
It is, yeah. You know, it's only what, 2.5 seasons to go.
Yeah, we might just get there in time for its 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, that's true, maybe. But yes, that will be it from us this week. We will be back next week with
Flesh and Stone.
The second part, Flesh and Stone. How do you remember it? Good.
I enjoy it. I can't remember too much of it, but I really like it until that last bloody scene with Amy.
Yes.
Which now I was researching it, and even Moffat's like, that was a mistake, and that's the one thing I would change from my era. So I'm glad even you've changed your mind on that. He's like, we shouldn't have played it as a joke, and I'm like, yes, you shouldn't have. You're right. Well done. But yeah, apart from that, I do think that last scene has probably coloured my view of the rest of the episode. So I'm sure I will enjoy it up to that moment, because I do remember being quite tense in that. You know, the scene where Amy has to pretend to see, like, oh, can't be me. I would simply die. And, you know, we have the controversial bit where you actually see an angel move, which I personally find even scarier, that you actually see them move. But people are like, no, this isn't how they work. Like, this isn't how they worked before, but things change. But, you know, if people don't like it, I think it's kind of fair. But I find that even scarier. So moments in that, I'm like, and yeah, I am looking forward to seeing exactly how the time is filled. Because I can't say, like, with absolute certainty I remember every single little bit. So we'll see. Maybe the headless monk's actually in it, and I completely forgotten. I doubt it. But can you imagine? Well, depends how hard they break someone's neck in it, I suppose.
Yes.
Maybe there would be a headless monk eventually. Maybe Jaw is a headless monk by the end, but we just don't see it. But anyway, I'm very excited to carry on now, because this was a very, very good first part. Yeah,
I think that's fair. I'll decide on my viewpoint on the angels moving after we watch it, because I think I've got a foot in both camps. As to, you know, it's scarier when they don't, but at the same time that's creepy when they move. I think it's always because the choice has always been, we've never been in the POV of someone else. You know, we've never been in the point of view of the angels, I guess, whereas in that scene we are, so therefore we can see what they see. Because Amy has her eyes closed. If we were going to be in the point of view of the companion, we would have to have darkness, and it just keep going. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. See how I feel about Amy having the angel in her head. See how well that plays.
Look into his angel eyes.
see how well. See how well.
One look and you're back in time. Or they'll snap your neck and then you'll still die.
Nice. Well done. We'll also see dying Matt Smith make an appearance in this. See if you can spot it.
It's a surprise tool we'll use later.
Yeah, literally. Which I always like. I always like seeing that, because, you know,
I never noticed it until people pointed out after today.
Exactly. You know, obviously when you're that young, you don't really pay attention to it. But then when you're older, you're like, hang on a second.
Wait a minute.
He's wearing a jacket. That's not right. That's lost. How did he get another one? But yeah. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. That will be next weekend. And yeah, we will see you for that. Bye-bye.
Bye.